Serving the Oshkosh community for 25 years, you're tuned in to Oshkosh Community Media Services. Welcome to Your City at Work, your program about City of Oshkosh departments. Your City at Work is a production of the City of Oshkosh and Oshkosh Community Media Services.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Your City at Work. On today's show, we'll talk about the busiest time of year for fires as John Holland is here, plus how much progress has been made on the Riverwalk and what's yet to come. Community Development Director Alan Davis fills us in on that and more. Joining me now is John Holland, the public educator from the fire department. John, thanks a lot for being here. Really appreciate the time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
First off, I know October was Fire Prevention Month. Why is it so important to go out and inform the public on fire prevention around this time of year?
Well, first of all, fire prevention is important all year long. However, coming in the winter months, that is our busiest time for fires by far, and all sorts of reasons for that. So it's you have the heating, whatever. So it's time to focus even a little more than usual.
What are, you said there's a lot of different causes for fires around this time of year, but what are the more common ones? What are the things that are sparking the flames, so to speak?
Very good. During the winter months, our biggest cause of fires is heating, and that from furnaces to space heaters to the newer ones like the pellet stoves and whatever. We also have a lot of holiday-related fires. And every holiday season we have at least 2 or 3 fires. And not that there's a good time to ever have a fire, but that is the worst time. And you have from people cooking who haven't all year long, making these huge feasts, careless use of smoking materials, and overloaded extension cords for like Christmas tree lights and things like that.
With heating and the furnace and whatnot, I know that it's obviously recommended, like anything, to kind of tune it up every once in a while. What is the fire department's, what is the fire department's recommendation on how often you should have a furnace inspected to make sure it's working and functioning properly, so maybe as to prevent some fire-related issues? Sure.
Our recommendation is at least once a year, right before the heating season, you should have a professional come in and make sure everything is working correctly. It's not something that you can just look at and go, yep, looks good to me. It is, you need to have someone who knows the whole system and how it's working. Have them come in and take a peek.
In terms of preventing the other types of holiday or winter-related fires, how do people go about preventing themselves or safeguarding themselves against those?
Okay. With the holidays, I guess the biggest one is we have a lot of unattended cooking, and that kind of goes back to you have people, making these great big dinners that don't cook all year long, and most of us, to be fair,
right.
We use the microwave for most things, but not leaving things unattended when they're on the stove. That is a big one. And then going along with that, at these holiday gatherings, you have a lot of alcohol flowing, and that cuts down on the judgment, and not only during the holidays, but the rest of the year. So They need to make sure that you have somebody there that is alcohol free.
With Christmas trees in particular, as the holiday season approaches, I know there's a lot of apartment buildings usually that don't want real Christmas trees in there because they're a fire hazard. How much does that come up, and how important is really the watering process of those trees when they're in a home or in an apartment complex?
Yes, and the watering part, like you said, wow, that is so important. A dry Christmas tree is basically kindling, and then you wrap it in electric light, so you got the sparks, or possible sparks,
right.
and you got the heat from off the light bulbs. The LED ones, by the way, are much safer that way. But it can be a huge problem with that. And especially, like you said, in apartment complexes where you can be as safe as you want, but you have to remember other people as well. So it's not always up to you.
I know you mentioned previously the alternative heating sources, not just the furnace, but the pellet stoves and the corn burners and whatnot. When it comes to disposing of ashes, is that something that is very, very crucial and very important in terms of also maybe preventing household fires?
Definitely, and I know we have a lot of carelessly discarded ash fires. I can't remember any we've ever had from a pellet stove or from a corn burner. However, obviously you have ashes, so that possibility certainly exists. The big thing is make sure the ashes are cool before you dispose of them, and then put them into a non-combustible container, not a plastic garbage can, not a paper bag, and one of my favorite ash fires we've ever had was not under your wooden deck. By the way, you did that. Little FYI for those of you who think this
things that seem pretty straightforward, but maybe need some refreshing this time.
Exactly, and we all do things like that. So I'm not picking on anybody, but we all do things. We'll save a few seconds, but with something like this, make sure your ashes are completely out, and that goes along with cigarette ashes as well.
How long from maybe some of these pellet stoves or alternative fuel methods? How long can ashes stay warm? You say make sure they're cool. I mean, is that something that's a matter of hours, a matter of they should sit for 2 days? How long, generally speaking, before the ashes are cool enough to dispose of them, assuming you're not dumping water or something on it to cool it?
Right. I would wait at least about a half a day before you try to get rid of them.
Okay.
A lot of people think that they're instantly cooled, and they're not. I mean, just because they're not burning doesn't mean that they're not still smoldering and not still hot.
Now, if a fire does break out, we've kind of mentioned the different causes of a lot of fires during the winter or the holiday months. If a fire does break out, I know there's a bunch of different types of extinguishers. Can you kind of go through what the different grades or the letters on the extinguishers are, and what kind of extinguishers people should have to safeguard against, a fire getting to a very uncontrollable state?
Yep. Oh, certainly. The main fire extinguisher that is out there is called an ABC extinguisher. You can get them at any department store, and the ABC, what that means on there, the A is any solid fire. Okay. Paper, cardboard, plastic, garbage, whatever. The B is a liquid fire, like grease. Okay, and C is an electrical fire. So if you have the ABC extinguisher, it's going to cover all three of those different types of fires. On the extinguisher itself, the directions are actually there. When you have a fire, it's not the time to pick up that extinguisher and yeah, that's right. I know how to do this. If you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. Take a look at it before you do it. And the small ones are fine. The little ones you can get at a department store. You don't need a large fire extinguisher. If the fire is too big for your fire extinguisher to put out, if you use that one and it doesn't go out, you shouldn't be fighting that fire. It is time to get out of there.
So, I mean, are there people out there, or are there places out there that sell fire extinguishers that aren't ABC anymore, and are those something that you should avoid because they don't cover the whole gamut, so to speak?
There are some. Most of them are like professional, like fire equipment places, where because sometimes we don't want the ABC or whatever. But most of them in the groceries, the department stores or whatever, they'll either be ABC or they'll be just BC, which is the liquid and the electric, because they figure if you're going to have a fire, it's going to be in the kitchen. It's probably going to be a grease fire. Either one of those works. I would go with the ABC. That just covers a little more of your bases there.
Smoke alarms, I know, are huge. Obviously, a very recommended, highly recommended thing by all fire departments out there. How often should people be checking to make sure that their smoke alarms are fully operational? I know that it can be a very overlooked thing. I probably don't check mine as much as I should.
Yep, you're right. People probably never check them, except when they're cooking. And actually, that's the best way to test them. When you push that button, you're basically just checking the battery to see if that works. So when it goes off when you're cooking, instead of swearing at your detector, you should go, good job. But they should check them once a month.
Okay.
And they should replace the batteries at least once a year. A better suggestion is twice, and just do it when you change your clocks. And that's coming up this Sunday. When you change your clocks, change the batteries in your detectors. It's much easier that way. not only are you safer, but you won't get that annoying chirp at 3 in the morning, like we've all done. And not me, because I changed my battery, but other people. You'll avoid that. So if you change them and keep them going, you're going to be safer and less annoyed in the middle of the night.
I thought I heard this. Are there some communities, I don't know if Oshkosh applies with this, but are there some communities that are actually making people go to the hardwired smoke detectors as opposed to the battery-operated ones that are wired right into the house electrical?
There actually is any new construction, and I forgot what the magic cutoff date was, but it has to be hardwired in. And it is just for that reason. People don't check the batteries, they just let it fade out. And if it is hardwired in, it's not going anywhere. Most of those actually have battery backup as well. Because people are always worried. They say, well, if it's hardwired into my electricity, what if the power goes out? Then I don't have a detector. And it's like, you're right. And that's why the battery backup is still there.
Okay. I know one of the things that the fire department also recommends is having a home escape plan. Talk about what a home escape plan is and what are the key elements, if you will, to a successful home escape plan in the event of a fire.
Okay. With a home escape plan, it's just like a fire drill at school. First thing you have to think of is what are going to be my 2 ways out of every single room in the house. That's not tough. You only have 2 choices. It's either the door or the window. Not that the window is always, the greatest choice, but it sure beats the alternative. So that you find 2 places out of every single room in the house. Then you need to pick one spot, we call it a safe meeting place, where the whole family goes. You pick a big tree or the neighbor's front door or whatever, somewhere where the family can make sure that everybody is safe, everybody is out. That way it also avoids parents doing things like running back in for their kids, thinking they're in trouble, and the kids are not. They're just maybe in the backyard or whatever, and they can't see them. They need to get that one spot, and then they actually have to practice it. And that's huge, because if you don't practice it, first of all, you don't know if it actually works. The best plans, we write them down and whatever, and we think this is what's going to happen. And then to see if everyone can do it, especially younger kids, and do they remember to go to the right spot? And you have to practice it, and that's probably, if they do have a plan, which most people probably don't, but if they do have a plan, the thing that is lacking is the actual practice.
Interesting and yet kind of disturbing stat here. Most fatal fires occur at home. Why is this? I know, when I used to drive home as a kid, my mom would say, be careful when you get close to home, that's where most accidents occur. Is it just a comfort level that people, they're so comfortable in their own environment they don't expect or they don't prepare for the worst to happen?
I think that does have a lot to do with it. I mean, there is the point that, whenever I spout that, people say, well, that's because that's where we spend all our time. And it's like, well, true, but it's also what you said. We do get so comfortable. It's the place where we feel the most safe, and so we do kind of let our guard down a little bit.
Final question for you. There's a lot of people out there, obviously, that live in apartment complexes. Is it even more important to have these escape plans and fire extinguishers and working smoke alarms and those types of things in place in an apartment complex? Because there, you're really dealing with not only yourself and your family or your loved ones causing the fire, but someone you don't even know who lives in the same building. So is that even more recommended to make sure you're putting the proper steps together in an apartment complex?
Oh, certainly. That should be a no-brainer. It's like you said, you have to be concerned with more than just yourself. And most fires are started by just plain old carelessness. And so you can be as careful as you want, but if your neighbors are not, it doesn't matter, just like you said. So you better have all these working detectors and your home escape plan in place and know what's going to happen.
All right, John, well, thanks for the time. Really appreciate you being here. As we mentioned earlier, your local firefighters very busy this time of year, and recently I actually got the chance to see just what it takes, or at least a little bit of what it takes, to be a fighter in a segment that we like to call In Your Shoes. All right, everyone, this is In Your Shoes, a brand new segment to Your City at Work, which puts me in the place of a city employee. Today, I'm here at the Oshkosh Fire Department with Mark Betcher. Mark's going to assist me in running through some agility drills that every firefighter wannabe must pass in order to assume active duty. Right away, I got off to a bad start just gearing up, putting my hood on backwards. Turn it around.
Oops. Welcome to the In Your Shoes segment.
And next came the boots and pants. Immediately upon putting my feet in, it felt like I was walking in quicksand. A heavy-duty jacket.
Of course, I fidget with the zipper. Good thing I'm not on the 2-minute drill.
Yeah.
Some gloves. And then the worst part yet, the air tank, which felt like a backpack loaded with bricks. Finally, the finishing touch with the helmet and ready to go. Agility test number 1, I've got to go to the top of an 11-story high-rise in 90 seconds or less. Flights 1, 2, and really even 3 weren't that bad as I was told not to run, but by flight 4, already feeling the burn. I was informed that after 5 or 6 stories, the challenge would go up a notch, and it did. My heart racing, my pace slowing, it took everything I could muster up to trek towards the finish. The last few steps, I thought I might give in to the fatigue.
Really setting in.
But alas, I completed the task.
Time?
1 minute, 20 seconds.
Wow.
We get to take the elevator down.
Well, that's good news.
All right, after about an hour break and 3 glasses full of water later, this is stage 2 of the agility test, or at least of my agility test. I got to pull 100 feet of charged fire hose. Upon starting phase 2, I thought I could start off easy, but you find out real quick how fast 30 seconds is when you're dragging gallon upon gallon of water. And oh, have I mentioned the gear? My legs shaky, I would still find the finish line, but
8 seconds over.
8 seconds over? Yep. Oh.
Did you have Wheaties this morning for breakfast?
I did not.
That's a problem. That's you were one bowl of Wheaties short.
Stage 3 is going to be the 160-pound stretcher carry, and I'm told I don't have to be in full gear for this. I can go back down to my street clothes, and I'll tell you this, I've never been so relieved to get back into my normal clothing than ever before. Normally, you start with the stretcher carry. I would end with this.
Yeah, I'm good.
And with a 60-second goal to go up, switch spots, and go down, you gotta move. Couple that with a tight hallway, and like the rest, it was far from easy. By the time I finished my 3rd and final test, I was more than ready to head back to home base, having missed the mark again.
Oh. Okay. Now you guys can carry me out to the car. Oh. 1 out of 3 ain't bad. Or something like that. Anyways, that's going to do it for our first In Your Shoes. I hope you enjoyed the piece. And I'll tell you, for a guy whose birthday happens to be September 11th, I've never been more appreciative for what these guys do.
And again, thank you to Mark Betcher for helping to set up that piece. Very, very fun and very exhausting. I actually happened to be still sore from that about 3 or 4 days later, so thanks, guys. Anyways, joining me now as promised is Community Development Director Alan Davis. Alan, thanks for being here as well.
Thanks for the invitation.
Big city project taking place recently is the Riverwalk project. What's the latest with that project? Where are we at with that?
Well, we're working on 2 sections of the Riverwalk this year. Stepping back in 2010, we did the Riverside Park area. Then in 2011, we did the Marion Road area. Here in 2012, we've done 2 sections, both the City Center section and the first segment on the South Shore down by Wisconsin Avenue Bridge and the fishing pier.
So if you had to put a percentage on how much is done and how much is left, what are the percentages?
That's a good question. Nobody's asked me that one. We're probably about 1/3 of the way done because the whole Riverwalk goes along the North Shore. It also goes on the South Shore all the way to the Pioneer, and then around the Pioneer down to the breakwater. So we're at least 1/3 of the way, maybe 40% of the way through the whole project.
Okay. Now, I know that you guys acquired some grants for this project. Are you currently going after more grants to help fund this?
Yes. Every segment, we're trying to get as much grant funding as we can for the city. We're shooting for 50% of the grant paying for the project. We've gotten about $2 million in grant funds to this point, and we're going after our next $500,000 in the next round.
How much does that alleviate, maybe, I don't know if it's taxes that citizens will see because of a project like this when you're getting so much grant help? How much is that easing some of the city's residents' burden?
Well, we're shooting for the pieces that are remaining on the South Shore to actually not have to go with on the citizens' backs at all.
Okay.
It'll be grant funds, and then the entire South Shore is part of a tax increment financing district. So we're expecting that the redevelopment of those areas are actually going to pay for the city's share of the grants.
Okay, that's great. What kind of improvements are going in or going on at Steiger Park, if I'm saying that correctly?
Sure.
It's still kind of new to the area.
Yep, Steiger Park, that's what I call it
Okay.
at least. Steiger Park's a little different in that it's kind of more of a natural area that we put the Riverwalk through. So if you go down to Steiger Park after it's open, you'll see that the Riverwalk is actually set a little ways off the river rather than right near the river.
Okay.
That takes advantage of some of the trees that were already there and some of the vegetation, and some of the Riverwalk incorporates kind of a winding through the trees, and you have a lot more grass and a lot more a natural area, as opposed to the North Shore, which is kind of an urban area where we have kind of a straighter Riverwalk, and it kind of hugs along the buildings and the shoreline.
When will that Steiger Park section be done?
It should be done this fall.
Okay.
Right now they've got the concrete poured and the bollards and the lights in. I think all we really have to do is finish the fishing pier and probably revegetate the area along the new Riverwalk.
I thought I was reading or heard recently that there's one spot in the Riverwalk that might be changed in the course in terms of making it a little bit shorter and a bridge or something like that. What area is that, and what are the latest developments with that particular portion of the project?
That would be the section on the South Shore just after William Steiger. That's the area that we call the Boatworks property. That's
Okay.
east of Michigan or east of the fishing pier. We're looking at different alternatives for using that property that the city or the RDA purchased a few years back. One way to kind of keep the river walk and the river close together is to build a series of bridges that go across kind of the mouth of the old marina that was down at the Boatworks property. If we don't do that, then we'll loop all the way around the South Shore, say the lagoon or the marina area, and bring the Riverwalk back out to the river.
So would it actually be cheaper to do that if that's the alternative route?
We're still examining that.
Okay.
We're still looking at that, so it's kind of up in the air as to which one would be cheaper. Certainly, I like the idea of staying closer to the river and keeping more development land on the south side of the lagoon area. But there's also depends on the elevation that we'd have to go with the Riverwalk. If we can keep it closer to the level of the water, then we don't have to build it up as high.
Okay.
That's one of the criteria that we'll be looking at, as well as the geotechnical, the underlying subsurface, what we have to build to support the bridge abutments versus building the trail all the way around the lagoon.
What's the next step in the South Shore section? Say that 3 times fast.
Well, I'm not going to try because I stutter too much as it is. The South Shore, we're working on the Boatworks property. We're actually applying for some grant applications to help with the redevelopment of the Boatworks property. We're also looking at continuing that through the Geldwin property and over to Sweetwater, eventually to the Pioneer Island and Pioneer Marina. The next section would be the portion of the South Shore that we have the control over. We can actually build it. Right now, we don't have that through the Geldwin property, so if I have to, I think I'd recommend skipping over that and going over it either to the Pioneer or the Sweetwater section of the Riverwalk.
Okay.
On the North Shore, there's only one section to finish, so maybe if I can jump ahead to the North Shore.
Go ahead.
The section between Main Street and Jackson Street, we call that the City Center section.
Okay.
That's the last piece, and we got quite a bit of grant money to help fund the reconstruction of the seawall, building a whole new deck and a boardwalk and 3 sets of finger piers that go out into the river.
Okay. What's the schedule for completion on that particular city center area?
That's a good question. It's going to stretch into next year, 2013. We were hoping to get it all done this year, but a number of things that kind of conspired in the construction that we're not going to be able to get it all done this year. We are going to get the section down by the City Center Hotel done. because that's the area that we want to have finished so that when the hotel opens next spring, we're not still constructing anything along the Riverwalk along there. So we're going to pour the concrete for the new seawall and the new patio for the Riverwalk, and then we'll build out the boardwalk that actually extends into the water, and then beyond the boardwalk we'll be building the finger piers that can serve the city center section.
Speaking about the hotel, isn't there some renovations going on with the City Center Hotel, and what is the update with that?
Yes, the City Center Hotel has started the reconstruction or the renovation of the hotel property. The building permits, the contractor permits for heating, ventilating, air conditioning, the plumbing, the electrical, they've pulled all that, the roof. So they're working on renovating all those rooms, and I think they're working basically from the top down to the bottom when it comes to that. And I know they're doing the roof to make sure everything that they install stays nice and dry and snug in the future. How
important is it, at least in your estimation, with that City Center Hotel, how important is it to that area that you know, gets up and looks really nice and runs really smoothly and efficiently?
It's critical for the future of downtown Oshkosh, in my opinion. Combined with the convention center, we see that being as a big regional draw for tourism, for convention, combined with the Riverwalk, combined with the improvements we've done with the boating facilities. We think it's going to really put Oshkosh on the map, and it's going to almost be a picture postcard type of situation that people will be able to point to downtown Oshkosh as saying that is a great place to be. That's a place where I want to go.
Is there something too about having that old time feel? Not that it's that dated in downtown Oshkosh, but you know, where there's newer developments and whatnot, the buildings don't look like that. So is it nice to have an older downtown area just for that nostalgic type feel?
Everything from north of the convention center does have that feel. And we're actually trying to encourage the renovation of those types of businesses all along the Main Street. And a lot of them have done a really nice job in renovating, so it keeps that historical feel. And I think that's what's unique about the downtown, is that it does have that historical feel, and people have done a good job in keeping that up. And we'd like to, I think even the streetscape that we did when we rebuilt Main Street kind of plays into that as well.
And I know the City Center Hotel is the one that's connected to the convention center via that bridge
that
across the skywalk. Is that something too that, with renovating the City Center Hotel, will then help out the business or the publicity that the convention center, the draw that the convention center has?
Absolutely. The convention center, over the last few years, it's been real tough to keep that convention center filled, being used, since the hotel wasn't in the greatest shape. Now that they're renovating the hotel, they think they can get a lot of the conferences that had been passing on Oshkosh in the past, because they do have the convention center. It's just that they didn't have the heads in the bed location right beside it. So they think it's going to build on each. The convention center is going to help the hotel, and the hotel will help the convention center.
What's the city doing in the street at CP and Commerce in front of the hotel?
We're tearing it up. It's going to be terrible. We're tearing it up for a reason, though. Earlier this fall, I think we took a look at the condition of the street there at CP and Commerce right in front of the hotel, and determined that we needed to replace some of those panels in the street. And then as the engineers started looking into what it would take to replace that, they discovered the problems that we have with the underlying utilities, and that's a common problem in the city. The sewer, the water, and the storm sewer really needed to be replaced if we were going to put a new finish on that street. So the engineers did a great job in trying to determine what we needed to fix, put together some designs, get that bid out and awarded so that we can fix that street in front of the convention center still this year, so that when the convention center opens next spring, it'll be a new street with a new surface. Everything will look like brand new, because it will be Commerce and CP.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Really appreciate the time. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
That's about all the time we have for today's show. But again, I'd like to thank both my guests, Alan Davis and John Holland, for joining me. That's all the time we have. See you next time.